Hi, I'm Dr. Arlen Myers. I'm President and CEO of the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs, and welcome to SoPE School. Over the next several months, we're going to produce a series of short videos for healthcare professionals who are interested in physician entrepreneurship to give you the knowledge, skills, abilities, and competencies you'll need to be successful. Um, I've been involved in physician entrepreneurship for several years, and I'm happy to share some experiences that will guide you. Today, I thought we would talk about just some basics concerning physician entrepreneurship and what I call the 5 pillars of physician entrepreneurship. If you look at the definition of entrepreneurship, you'll find a lot of different definitions, and unfortunately, most of them tend to focus on the creation of a company or a startup. In my view, though, I think the scope of entrepreneurship is much larger and therefore affords a much bigger opportunity for physician participation in a number of different roles. I think that the definition of physician entrepreneurship and therefore the pillars of physician entrepreneurship are the pursuit of is the pursuit of opportunity under VUCA, or volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous conditions, with the goal of creating stakeholder or user-defined value through the deployment of innovation using a vast business model. Now, if we look at each of those 5 elements, they sort of describe the challenge and the opportunity in front of physician entrepreneurs. So the first is the pursuit of opportunity. And there's certainly lots of opportunity to fix sick care and change sick care into health care. And I think everyone who is involved in medicine and taking care of patients understands that. But the primary idea is that you have to sort of pick your spot and you have to decide which problem you're really interested in solving and the role that you will assume and how you will do that. So my tip in the very beginning is that you should be a problem seeker, not a problem solver. And the real core of entrepreneurship is understanding the needs and wants of a customer or a stakeholder or a payer or someone who is going to be involved in using what ultimately will be a solution. So that's number one. Number two, the pursuit of opportunity under VUCA conditions. So VUCA, as I said, is a concept that actually started in the Defense Department as part of wargaming, and it describes volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous conditions. And we all know that black swans, COVID, one-time-in-a-century events can happen that are totally unpredictable. And in fact, most of the journey and the path of entrepreneurship is unpredictable. So the best you can do is start, because that's what you have control over. But looking at entrepreneurship as a roadmap, I think is misleading. It's really more like a treasure hunt. I mean, as you go through this process, you're identifying and understanding certain clues that tell you which direction to take. So I would think of it more like being not someone who follows Google Maps, but someone who is following a treasure map. You go to a place, you find some clues that leads you to another direction. Maybe you try it, maybe you don't. You try it, it doesn't work. You have to go somewhere else. That kind of thing. So number one is the pursuit of opportunity. Number two is under VUCA conditions. Now, probably the most important part of this definition is number three, which is the goal is to create user or stakeholder defined value. And it really doesn't make any difference what you think the value of your solution is. The only thing that matters really is what a potential customer thinks the value is. And when we talk about value, what we're really talking about are the tangible and intangible perceived benefits less the tangible and intangible perceived costs in the mind of the user. And we all do cost benefit when we buy anything, when we do something, when we decide which person to be with. So it's always a cost-benefit calculation. And your objective is to create enough value such that a customer or a stakeholder is willing to switch if they happen to be using a present product, or if it's the status quo and there is no product, they're willing to use it. So you have to be able to create value in the mind of the customer, or the mind of the user, or the mind of the stakeholder. So, number one, pursuit of opportunity. Number two, under VUCA conditions. Number three, with the goal of creating user-defined value. Number four, through the deployment of innovation. Now, again, there's a lot of different definitions of innovation, and in my view, it's a qualitative and a quantitative description. The quality is it new, or is it something that's old being used in a new way? The quantitative aspect is the value it creates. Now, research indicates that customers generally won't switch from one product to the next unless they perceive a 5 times greater value in the new product versus the product they're already using. In my view, that's incremental improvement or incremental value. I think there's so many problems in sick care that we need to go big or go home. So I'm proposing that you set your mind to create 10 times the value in the mind of the customer. And it's just not me. There are other organizations that use that 10 times hurdle. Google uses it, other people use it to measure how much value they really need to create to move the needle. So again, it's a qualitative, quantitative matrix. Now, the worst that can happen is that you create something that's new, or something that's old used in a new way, and it doesn't create any incremental value in the mind of the user. That's called a solution looking for a problem. Where you really want to be is in the upper right quadrant, where you're creating novelty, and you're creating value at the same time and can monetize it, which really gets us to the last pillar, which is the business model. So number one, pursuit of opportunity. Number two, under VUCA conditions. Number three, creating user-defined value. Number four, through the deployment of innovation. And finally, number five, using a viable or a vast business model. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with value proposition design and business model canvas, or lean startup methodology, customer discovery techniques, we'll be going into that further in SoPE School down the road. But suffice it to say, the basic idea is to develop a business model canvas with underlying business model hypotheses, and then you test them and decide whether they're valid or invalid. It's a lot like the scientific method. You observe something, you create a hypothesis, you set up an experiment, you run the experiment, you collect the data, you analyze the data, and you decide whether the underlying hypothesis that you have created is valid or not. Something in science we call accepting the null hypothesis or not. And as I said, later on in SoPE School, we'll go into how the business model canvas works. We can give you resources, and we can give you other things to read and videos to watch. So, in conclusion, I believe that the 5 pillars of physician entrepreneurship are the pursuit of opportunity under VUCA conditions, with the goal of creating user-defined value through the deployment of innovation using a viable or a vast business model. And at the very beginning, if you're not used to doing this, your first step, as I said, is to be a problem seeker, not a problem solver. Understand the customer, understand the problem they have, understand how much pain it causes, understand who is involved, understand the value chain, understand how it works, and how you'll be able to solve it. I hope you found this first chapter in SoPE School useful, and that you will take this opportunity to start down this road And I look forward to seeing you at the Society of Physician Entrepreneurs at www.soapnet.org. Thanks for listening.